Now, this is the system that Adam Smith named, you know, labor, land, capital, invisible hand. 3 factors in something untangible. Let's look at our economy today. Capital is doing well. We've got plenty of cash. Our land is being used to its limits, and labor is shrinking. We don't need it. And if we don't need it, it doesn't need to be there anymore in the same capacity. And then this invisible hand, still not measured. But we have 2 other things that we're learning about the economy, and that's social trust and social capital. Social capital is not social media. It is not something new. Now, social media is giving us a window into social capital, but social capital itself is the interconnectedness of all of us to make exchanges. So I want to take this diagram and upgrade it for today. And what I'm going to say is that social capital is the invisible hand that Adam Smith saw but couldn't identify. He couldn't put his finger on it because it was 300 years ago. But social capital isn't the hand that moves the economy. It's actually the hand that the economy sits in. If you don't have a social trust based society, you don't have a market to function within that. And so when you look at this, land and capital are still there. Labor is simply a function of capital if it's robotic, or it's a function of people if we still need people to do it. People are their own factor of production rather than them being just known as labor, because we don't need them all to be. We have room for other functions for people to have in society. We've got this model of what the economy looks like. We have these things: education, health, and welfare. How do we take care of those things? And primarily for the last century, those have been paid for as a function of excess GDP. You could have a stay-at-home spouse, you could afford good public schools, and your company paid for your health insurance. And so this is where I take user-generated content and connect it to both sides of the economy. There's a metric known as average revenue per user. This is Facebook's fourth quarter 2015, their average revenue per user. In the US and Canada, $13.54. In the Asia Pacific, $1.59, Europe, $4.50. Take these numbers and you go, okay, well, why are they different? The point being is all the information you and I put into the internet and contribute, whether it's an Amazon review, a Facebook check-in, a Periscope feed, a Lyft and Uber ride somewhere, all of that is user-generated content. Well, where it gets monetized is this average revenue per user. That's the revenue on the other side of the economy, which the advertising revenue is only a small percentage of the GDP. What I want to do is use average revenue per user as a metric to start making investments in education. A company like Facebook could invest in education, health, and welfare, and by doing that, they would contribute to a growth in social capital. The more freedom and flexibility and autonomy people have, the more they can use the internet. As a user of the internet, creating more content, whether that's a stay-at-home parent that is spending more time with their children, a college student going back to college to retool their education. All those things come back because those users will provide a higher average revenue per user. The other benefit to it too is it promotes freedom. So a country like China, which we're trying to figure out how do we compete with China right now, because GDP is the only metric we use. Well, if we have a social capital index, we have a measuring stick that they can't use. The only way you can use a social capital index is if you have a free and flowing internet. So the US and Western economies that have a free and flowing internet would have access to this new index to trade currency, to make investments on. China would have no choice but to eventually loosen their control on the internet and actually free their society more. The world functioned on GDP without having a metric until we were in crisis. And we have functioned on social capital without having a metric. If Adam Smith were alive today and had the tools to measure his invisible hand, he would be doing so. And therefore, if we have the tools to measure it, we must measure it.